Good afternoon, friends. Welcome to this very high-power webinar. Uh, this time we have two famous architects and two famous developers. The last time we had the view only of designers, and this time we hope to do a little different. Well, how it started was I was speaking to Hafiz Contractor and asked him, we need to do a webinar. We have time and engage, and let's see what we can talk about. And I asked him for a topic, and the first thing that he said was, we have screwed it up royally. So he said, the topic. So I sent that out, but the very next morning, early morning, I get a message from him. No, Baba, you can't write that as a topic. You have to say live and let live. So that's what the topic is. And first question to Mr. Contractor. We all heard what Mr. Ratan Tata spoke yesterday. He was very upset. He was very hassled, and he was talking of the extremely high density, which he said is the highest on the planet in slums like Dharavi, and what that has done to the city and what that is doing in the current pandemic. So what is your take on it, and what do you think what we have done wrong, and what should be the way forward?
First of all, I would like to say that I completely agree with Mr. Tata that we have to do something, and we have to take care of our slums. He was very critical what was done previously. And if you know about it, the previous slum scheme was also initiated by me. And I had gone to Mr. Bala Sahib Thakare, and he had done it. He had approved it, and then subsequently it took shape. Yes, there might be lots of missing points in that, but unless and until we do something, must have missed out of it. But I would like to convey one incident. When we first went to the slum, and there was a opening ceremony of puja, and we came in all their proper dress and everything. That's 9-yard sari, and they took my client. I remember Mr. Uddhav Thackeray also was there, and I was there. And they took us near the Ganpati Mandir. And one of the slum guys told us that, do you know what they are doing? So I said, no, these ladies are taking your aarti. So I said, okay. He says, no, it's not okay. We Maharashtrian ladies don't take aarti of anybody. We take aarti only of God and their husbands. So I said, then why are you doing it for us? So one of the ladies told me that, do you know what you have done to us? I said, no, tell me. I thought we are just going to give you houses. And, my aim was to give them pakka houses. He says, today, we cannot go to toilet after sunrise. And we cannot go to toilet before sunset. We will get toilets in our own house. And we can go to toilet whenever we get the call. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Today, if we can't go to a toilet for 10 minutes, can you hold on? I think that really, I was in a different world. I said, my God, they can't go to toilet. Now that's the thing. We have missed out on a lot of things, and we must have missed out. But today, everybody is appreciating what Tata said, and I also appreciate the a lot, and I wish that there were people like him when we were doing the first slum scheme. There were people there like him to advise us, because I am always for criticism, I am always for good advice. One good advice, we will go one step further. One good criticism, we will go 10 steps ahead. So we'll try and solve that criticism. We have already given a proposal to the Maharashtra government, not today and yesterday, more than a month back, about showing them and they also given a proposal to the central government how we can eradicate the problem of housing for whole of India. This is not today or tomorrow. And what Mr. Tata is talking about, proper ventilation, proper environment, have planned for all of that. And more than 1 month, we had written a letter on March date, I forget, and we have got a call to respond to that. Tell me. Okay, so I said what I had to say for your question. If you have some other question, please tell me.
Yeah.
I'll reply.
Now, I'd like to pose a question to Mr. Jaishankar.
Yeah.
Sustainable construction. What is your take on sustainability, costs, and going forward? Is sustainable construction sustainable? Are we able to do it?
Thank you, Vivek, and thank you, gentlemen, for inviting me. And good to be with Hafiz and Sanjay and the Bowman. So sustainable construction is the buzzword today, no doubt, and it is in a very simple word. Sustainable construction is what we are supposed to do, or what we were doing many years back. Till this steel and glass buildings came up and started guzzling a lot of energy, and then I think subsequently there were various issues even now. If you see in this COVID crisis time, there is a fear that buildings which are fully air conditioned, unless the HVAC air conditioning systems are clear and very well maintained, there would be certain challenges for recycling of air, etc. has to be proper. Otherwise, people will have few difficulties. But in general, like you have the NBC, you have green building codes, IGBC, and all such authorities who certify what is sustainable construction, which means we have to conserve water, which may be in case of buildings, you have to have dual and flat, even triple lines, piping lines for reuse of water. So saving the groundwater, recharging groundwater, and rainwater harvesting. Even in a place like Bangalore, if one were to save all the rainwater, there is no need to. It can help you manage the water resources for about 5 to 6 months period without depending on municipal authorities. Probably in the case of Mumbai, which receives much more rain, it could be as much as 8 to 10 months of water requirement can be met only by rainwater harvesting. I think the famous architects are there. They can correct me if there is any slight change. So, similarly, it is a question, but if it is a commercial building, in case of a sustainable construction, the latest NBC, that the National Building Code rules also say the amount of glass that can be used should only be about 40% of the exposed area, and generally you need to try and avoid too much of glazing on western side, because to avoid the western sun, and also to quite a bit of eastern side also. But as long as you maintain about 40% of the area glazing, and for commercial buildings, again, high energy efficient your e-glass can be used. Then there would be also garbage processing, separation, processing, and a lot of mobility issues can be should be taken care. That is, you can have a vehicular and pedestrian traffic can be separated. And these are some of the aspects: use of solar lamps, LED lamps, generally low energy consumption, low water consumption, and use of good quality air. These are some of the aspects of sustainable construction. It is required because people were not using all these aspects in the recent past. I think the authorities, the National Building Authority, has looked into it, and particularly in the Western concept also, it is being the buzzword being talked about more, which is very welcome in my opinion.
Friends, just for information for those who are not aware, Mr. Jay Shankar is Managing Director of Brigade Group and makes some of the finest buildings in the country. You have to see his buildings in Bangalore. They're outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
A question now for Sanjay Puri. Quick construction, cheaper construction. How do we manage to build with fewer people? The fact is that migration is a huge problem. How do we solve that issue?
This will have to be a very, very, it's a very all-encompassing topic where a lot of people need to be involved in it together to make decisions. There is a need that the migrant workers need to come in less into our cities, because that is a major problem. Most sitting in homes, working from there is very easy, but the thousands and millions who have been like literally forced to live in places which are not conducive to living, they haven't had meals, they've traveled miles to get across, it's not a good thing. So we need to take care the next time this doesn't happen, which means that however many building materials can be actually created out of the main cities, it should be possible to set up factories in those places so that the workers are there and the minimum amount of workers that are required are there on site. In short, to kind of mechanize the process of building on site within the main urban areas of the city. So there's lesser amount of traffic that comes in and everything is far more mechanized. Think modular construction, think using materials which are sustainable, of course, but which have been sourced from nearby places, completely brought to site in a way where they can be used as it is, and very minimal amount of work on site.
Thank you. Question for Baman. Baman, what is the way forward? You're a pro in residential construction. You make outstanding buildings. What do you see as a change that you expect in what you're going to do going forward?
So, thanks, Vivek. I love seeing all the rest of my panelists, and they're all teamed Jay Shankar developer, and then I had the pleasure of working with Hafiz as well as Sanjay. I think the way forward is to actually probe deeper into the mind of our customer. Understand the need. The auto industry, which I often quote, usually does a study, an in-depth study of every new vehicle that they launch. They are generally the ones who set the trend for most of the cars that are coming in the future. They have about 3 to 4 years of what the consumer needs, giving the consumer that much, little by little or lot by lot. And then there is a continuous flow of technology coming in. I think, Sanjay was trying to suggest that factory type construction, while it is still not very prevalent in India, I think, most of our panelists can tell you that around the world, people get their buildings actually built somewhere and assembled somewhere. And just this morning, I was hearing that way back in 1914 or whenever it was that Empire State Building was built, it was in planning for 36 months, but in execution for about 14 months. Look at it this way: we are so bothered. I can speak about us in the past in Mumbai city before ease of doing business, etc. came in, and even today, some of the DCR is so how do I say this, concerned about misuse of space that we don't allow. And I'm sure the architects out here on the panel will speak very vociferously about it, that they don't allow, or we don't allow for the actual lifestyle of a human being to be captured, right? And what Mr. Tata said, which I think Hafiz just adhered to or alluded to, was finally, while planning, let us forget everything else and let us only remember that the human beings are going to live out there. And we as human beings are social creatures. What we've all realized in these 25 days or almost now 30 days of a Bandh is that we need to live in a particular way. Homes with work from home are going to be a different space. People will start valuing the additional space we give them if that is well planned. I think value build is going to be something that's going to be appreciated a lot more than just price. I was on another webinar where maybe the fear that everybody was expressing was that, look, the customers are going to look for a better price or a steal deal. I said a customer should always look for a steal deal, but beyond that, what a customer should look for is a value proposition. How do you build value into a home? I mean, you make seamless homes that, everything just comes to you naturally. It's like an automobile. When you're driving a car, once you've driven one, you're moving from car to car quite easily when you're there. The point that I'm trying to make is most developers need to, and I'm sure we do, and architects are moving more in that direction, is to go towards unitization of spaces. Why don't we kind of, like the rest of the telephone world, the mobile world, go into apps which are uniformly usable across various instruments? So likewise, I think there's going to be so much change coming in. I'm jumping from topic to topic. The mind is whirring away, but I can tell you this, that I've been in conversation with architects as well as my internal teams, as well as our customers. Our architects are also talking to the customers who are living in our homes. And we are trying to understand what really could be changed or what really could be bettered going forward. I'd suggest that every realtor, every architect should kind of make it a point to actually speak to the end consumer, connect with him, find out what worked, what didn't work, or then you can reach out to us developers and we could charge you architects a little fee. We could charge you architects a little fee and then give you those details, and then maybe the future of design, is
Really? When we guys tell you that you require space for a balcony, you require a space for a little study niche, all of you want that, no, squeeze the flat, make it less, it's not saleable, we want a pocket size this much, what's it called, the ticket size is this much, then bring it down, squeeze it, and don't waste space. So what happens to all of that? Every time we give you a good idea, it is thrown out of the window because you just basically want to squeeze the flat to the extent possible, thinking that that's what will sell. It won't sell if you don't make it livable. Yeah, come on. We've been saying that since years.
No, I agree.
Can I add to? See, I am looking at sustainability in a different way. Yes, what Mr. Jaishankar said, that green buildings, yes, fine, but there is another angle to the whole thing. I'm looking at it, from India perspective, India's population, how much, we have to house, how many people we have to house. From other side, I'm looking at it as, food, where we are going to go grow food. Also, the kind of materials that are available. Concrete, if you look at it, concrete in the next 30 years, India is going to have no limestone mines. Wood has already gone off. So what we have done in our office is the last 1 or 2 years, we are working on a thing called zero waste architecture, wherein we took plans wherein we took plans of other architects, and what in, say, 10 lakh square feet somebody was giving say 1,000 flats. We studied it, we compressed it, not reducing the room size, not reducing all the utilities, everything, but designing it in such a way that we were able to give 10 to 15% flats more. And Mr. Jaishankar, there was a builder from Bangalore. I reworked the whole scheme and gave him 150 flats more in his scheme. Similarly, we have done, so what we are saying that there was a way of planning, but if you look at planning, if you look at the structure, if you look at all of that, in the same amount of material, you can do more. Now, that is a very, very sustainable way of doing things. Yes, electricity, you're trying to save electricity. Yes, electricity can be manufactured. But the materials, if we are restricting and if we are housing more people in the same material, that's one way of looking at it. And for India, with the kind of population that we have, 1.3 billion, and most of the population, 50% is less than 30. They get married very soon. They will have kids. So we will go from 1.3 to maybe 1.5. And the amount of built up area that we need in the next 30 years, 75% of that built up area is not built today. So if we save 15% of all our built up area and put it rightly in the right place, we will be able to accommodate 15% more number of people. So that one way of, I'm looking at it as a sustainable way. Then when we talk about cities, how to do cities as more sustainable, that's a completely a different topic. And we can do a lot. If you allow me to say, I can say it. Otherwise, you ask question to somebody.
No, just Hafiz, one thing for you. What is your one idea can be given to the government, to the urban development or the chief minister for a city, which is what you were going to say. What is your one idea that you think, if you had to tell them to do one thing for you, part of your bucket list, what will that be?
See how cities are planned today. All our cities, if you look at Mumbai, expanding. What was Pune? Now you look at it, it has expanded. What was Delhi? It has expanded. What was Bangalore? It has expanded. Now, is this the right way to do it? The trouble is that whenever we get an invitation to design a new city, which we keep on getting, so many square kilometers by so many square kilometers, and they expect you to design the cities in the old fashion, how they were designed in Europe and in America. We in India have to design our cities in a different way. We need more compact land. What are they doing today? They are taking those so many square kilometers by so many square kilometers, giving subsidies to build, farmers, buying their land and making cities like the old way. The old way is not the right way. We need more dense, condensed, vertical cities so that we preserve land. Land is one commodity which cannot be produced, and that one has to realize. And we have to save land for food securities, for water. That is the sustainable way of doing a city. And if we do a sustainable city, building is a small fragment of it, okay? But we have to take care of that also. We have to think about cities, how we are going to redevelop and not keep on expanding. Because take that same area, regenerate it, reframe it, and make proper use of it so that you can house your population. We have to think about our biggest asset is population. Our biggest minus point will be population. Our success depends upon how we are going to design our cities. That will be the success of India. And if we do not design our cities properly, we are doomed.
There are questions that are coming in, and before we move to taking questions, Mr. Jaishankar, you're the only one who's not from Bombay. You are from Bangalore. What is your wish list to the Bangalore administration, to the Bangalore powers that be? So you'll have to go on, you'll have to remove the mute.
Okay. Thank you, Vivek, again. So I agree 100% with Hafiz's idea of growing vertical. This is something with the developer community, CREDAI Bangalore has been trying to impress upon the government, state government and civic authorities, not today, for the last 25 years. Bangalore is one city which is quite expansive, in the sense we have 1,200 square kilometers is the city size, which is much bigger than Mumbai. And in Bangaloreans historically like layouts, residential layouts. That way it has grown very wide and far. But as Hafiz very rightly said, whatever you can build in, say, 250 acres, the number of residential houses, whether it is in Bangalore, it is generally referred to as a 60 feet by 40 feet site, or a 50 feet by 80 feet site, or even a 30 feet by 40 feet site. The same amount of houses we can do in just 50 acres if we grow vertically, and with better light, with better ventilation, with better sports amenities for the people who live in general, you can give a better quality of life. Not only that, even the authorities will spend much less time to create the infrastructure of water, sanitary, electricity facilities for a 50 acres than for a 250 acre thing. More greenery can be maintained for sure, without hesitation. And even as Hafiz mentioned, we need not go on acquiring agriculture lands from farmers and displace them of their livelihoods. The authorities can spend much less money to acquire, almost 20% instead of whatever they are currently doing. But somehow it does not receive right attention from the authorities for whatever reason. And today the quality of town planning has to very substantially improve, basically from authorities angle, the civic authorities and planning authorities angle. The other thing, Bangalore has a great potential to redevelop the city. I know we don't have slum redevelopment schemes, we don't have. It is only being talked about. And we also don't have as many slums as in Mumbai. Even then, there are very old areas in Bangalore which can be redeveloped, and it can improve better. I would say better roads, better amenities, utilities can be done. This is there on paper for the last 15 years, but somehow it has not been implemented. It requires a great cooperation between the developer community and the civic authorities, and also who is the existing users. More like it should be a public-private partnership. And I personally feel the government has to trust the developer community much more than what they are doing. They have to trust the capability of architects much more. And right now there is, we know everything kind of an approach is there from the civic authorities. That needs to change. And there has to be much greater collaboration between the developer community and the civic authorities and architects. That's what I feel.
Thank you, Mr. Jaishankar. Sanjay, going vertical, Mumbai is the only city in the country that is vertical. How easy is it to be able to convince the people who've been living in homes, in houses, in low rises around the country that we should go vertical so that we can save land and not occupy as much space as gets occupied if we spread ourselves horizontally.
Shall I answer that question for you?
Yeah, I think you answered it because I don't know what's happened. We seem to have lost Sanjay somewhere.
Sanjay is in mute.
Okay, can I answer that, Vivek?
Yes, of course.
See, I feel, first of all, yes, I would also like to stay in a bungalow, okay? But can we afford it? Can the country afford it? We have, in fact, if I was, say, the Prime Minister or the Urban Minister of India or something like that, I would ban row houses. I will ban semi-detached and detached houses, which is rampantly happening, all over India, and just gobbling land. We have to go in for vertical development to house our people. And it is it's a wrong concept that if you go vertical, it is more expensive. No, it is not. If you do it the right way, it is not. If you design your structure the right way, it is not. Mr. Jaishankar just said, and I absolutely, if you take 100 acres, and if you were to develop 100 acres or 1,000 acres, put in roads, put in services, okay, and instead of take a part of it, utilize the same amount of density and go vertical, you will save on all of that roads and all the other services which you are going to put it for that 1,000 acres. And imagine that leaving that 1,000 acres, which you can make it into a green area, how much of environmental benefit that you will get. And that is what today we have to think about the environment. There is a very good saying. That we have not inherited this earth from our forefathers. We have borrowed it from our kids. So we have to leave this earth when we leave for our kids to be the right way. Not that, we do so much of debt and have destroyed the whole earth and then we are leaving it for our kids. This is what is happening today. That should not happen.
Bhaman, will consumers be willing to pay a little extra? Are they willing to pay more for sustainability, green, that takes care of a lot of things that the panel is talking about?
So, Vivek, I think to answer the question in a single word, yes. You have to drive home the point. You have to show how green buildings or sustainable development is something that is, like Hafiz mentioned, better for your kids in the future. Also, how it saves cost over a period of time. With technology, what happens, Vivek, we've observed is that things start paying for themselves, number one, but more importantly, as time goes along, the technology becomes that much more cheaper to buy. So we always drive the value proposition at Rustomjee. We are always telling people that, we're not going to sit here and compare ourselves on price. We're going to sit here and compare ourselves on what value we are building in. And customers are very happy. And then over a period of time, it's a sustained effort to keep telling the people, especially in our townships. I've had the pleasure of doing one with Hafiz and one with Sanjay. We keep telling our, consumers out there or our home buyers out there or those that have settled out there, about the advantages of what is happening as a township. And I've seen this initially, the movement was very slow, but today it's almost like people will come and be happy to live in what we call our townships rather than try and buy something in a single standalone building. So, and of course, let's not put it any other way, and let's not mince words. You've got to, be efficient in what you do. The main cost is not here. The main cost is in how you structure your deals for development. The main cost is in how you kind of put up your proposals for approvals. You save time, you save money. The main cost is also in how you kind of fund your proposals. So these are all the important factors. For a very long time, we were all, you know, like a herd mentality. Once a particular area had a particular price, we just kind of went out with it. And over there, to a certain extent, like I mentioned before, the government needs to put its hat in the ring and, you know, bring in certain changes, bring in certain advantages. So just to give all our, you know, consumers an idea that anything between 36 and 42 rupees, I can tell you, Mr. Jaishankar, in Bombay, of what we collect from our consumers directly or indirectly goes into the hands of the ULB and the government. And with the balance money, a developer is supposed to complete his projects, take care of all statutory other liabilities, you know, compliance, take care of his customer handling. So basically, it's a little rough. But I think COVID-19 is a game changer, and I'm sure that going forward, people will be more and more value driven. They will want to live in sustainable developments. They'll want to live in developments where when another outbreak or some kind of an outbreak takes place, they are well equipped, well taken care of. And today our township stand testimony to that. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Thank you, Baman. Sanjay, we had lost you in the middle. On the design front, what would an architect need to do to change in a mindset or change in their design ethos to make sure that buildings are green, buildings are more eco-friendly in the direction everybody is talking of these days? Is it too much that design would have to take care of?
So design, like everybody has said before me, you need to have high density. It needs to be vertical, so you use less ground area. All your services are economized. Like Avi said, to reduce and increase the percentage and use the same amount of area. So you minimize everything that is a wastage by carefully looking at the plan, and then yes, use sustainable technology by bringing materials that are easily available and getting less amount of workers. So mechanize the work on site, less amount of people on site. There are lots of factors. And then once you start now making post this, you're going to have to create very good conferencing facilities in every single building so that it enables everyone to be able to conference nicely and connect from their housing societies, offices, all of it. We need networking facilities in every single kind of project, as well as on the site, so that it minimizes the amount of traffic that is required to go to a meeting, to discuss something in 2 hours, which could easily be done virtually. Reduce the amount of site meetings, so that because sites are also connected, so you can coordinate with the project management and finish everything virtual meeting. All these factors will be very, very important to reduce the carbon footprint and at the same time make everything sustainable, right from material to technology to land use to services, to truly make it sustainable. It's not just about using sustainable materials.
Okay, great. We've got questions from the audience. Anika, would you either let the audience into the room or ask the questions?
Okay, so anyone who wants to ask a question, please click on raise your hand button so I can allow you all into the room to ask a question. In the meantime, I'm going to start with the questions asked in the chat. So Vivek Gupta has asked, is there a real shortage of land to build in this country? Isn't more energy consumed in vertical buildings? Where is sustainability in tall structures?
The amount of land that is consumed by urban area is only about 3%. That's not the worrying thing. The worrying thing is how much of land that we need to grow for our food subsidies. There are lots and lots of surveys, different surveys, and different countries grow different amount of food per acre. What has been given is that the amount of land that is required per person, some figures say 5 acres to grow everything. Some say 10 acres to grow everything. And if you look at for India, as per all the surveys and all that, that after leaving, unused land, forest land, what is left out? Considering our population, we have virtually reached the climax that the amount of land to the food that we are going to grow. Unless and until we increase and change our policies and technology and grow more food, then we will be having enough land. So this is one thing. Okay. The second thing that you are talking about is how expensive is a vertical building, and is it more energy consuming? Okay. Yes, in a way that we will be having lifts. Yes, you're talking about from a 4-story to a 15-story is one thing. I'm talking about, when I'm saying vertical and dense, I'm talking about mega structures. Because in the next few years, just imagine in the last 10 years, how many hurricanes, how many tsunamis, how many earthquakes the world has seen. We are going to have more earthquakes, more tsunamis. The weather is changing everywhere. So we have to design our buildings which are more earthquake proof, more wind proof. And if you're looking at that kind of structures, you will be working and living in the same structure. So you will be completely getting taking off all fossil fuels of automobiles. You'll be just traveling vertically by lifts, and maybe a little bit of a horizontal walk by travelators. It's like you have to think completely different. We have to take a quantum leap. The world's population in the last 60, 70 years has doubled. Where are we leading to? Now, these are the things. Yes, we are going to be more expensive, but the amount of land that we are going to save, the amount of environment that we are going to keep intact, it's no comparison at all. What is all this COVID-19? It was coming. If it was not this, the way we are just gobbling, something else will come. We have to respect nature. We have to take care of nature and do your development. That's a sustainable way.
I saw a comment that Vivek doesn't agree. Maybe we'll have to take you offline with Vivek. We'll have to
I've allowed Vivek into the room so he can ask any question that you want.
Okay, great. Okay.
So Vivek Gupta can speak now.
Yeah. Hi, my question to the panelist is that I really don't understand building vertically. We will, right from the issue of construction, the amount of resources that we will require, which will be completely unsustainable, to the entire life of a building, which is going to be an energy guzzler. How do you think that we can talk about building sustainably and more sustainably when we build vertically? In fact, even when you talk about building vertically from the point of view of natural disasters and calamities, in trying to strengthen those buildings, you will be everywhere more unsustainable than building vernacularly, or maybe building dense but building low-rise, maybe walk-up apartments at the max. And also, Hafiz, my question is, how much max FSI is one looking at? How much of the land can we seed, even if you go to an FSI of 4 or 5? Basically, in only the built-up area, you will be 4 times of the ground area. So I don't really see that as an answer, because you have issues of having electricity, you have issues of water. We already do not have water in most of the areas in this country. We do not have electrical supplies the way the entire Gurgaon you built runs on generators. We all know how scarce the electricity is. How do you think that it will make vertical cities more sustainable? Please, thank you.
Okay. See, we are. Can I answer that?
Yeah.
See, when we are talking about vertical cities or vertical development, we we are trying to compare a 4-story structure with a, say, a 50-story structure. First of all, when you build a 50-story structure or a 60-story structure, uh, you are not going to compare a 4-story structure just down below. The 4-story structure, if by 4-story you are utilizing the same FSI or same density, you will be covering how much of area. So first of all, that area you have to look at it. Okay. Then if you are going to look at that area, how much of ground infrastructure you will have to do. Then the second thing is, when you are looking at that ground infrastructure, how much of concretizing of that ground you will be looking at. Look at all the row houses that are being built. You said about Gurgaon and all that. Okay, so maybe you're from Gurgaon or Delhi. I would give you a very good example of what we have done for DLF 5. The original law was that you will be making, row houses. When I was doing this work about, say, in 87 or something like that, I gave the idea to Mr. King and said, sir, this is not the way to do it. Let's make high rises and leave the rest of the area as forest. But he said, that's not the law. We went to the chief minister, that time's chief minister, Mr. Bhajan Lal, okay? And we proposed the whole scheme to him. And he says, "Arey wah, ye to bahut badhiya ho jayega. You'll have so much of greenery." And today, look at that area. It's a heaven. It's the best living area in this country. Why in this country? In this part of the world, there were hardly any birds or anything. Today we have more than so many thousand peacocks over there, birds. Whenever I go to Gurgaon, I want to be there for at least 10 minutes. I tell you, if I go there for 10 minutes, your life is changed for at least 1 week. Now, these are the things that you have to compare. Don't just compare naya paisa to naya paisa. Another thing, if I had made row houses, I would have had row houses for maybe 800, 900, 1,000 people. Today, by having that high rises, I am having 3 times more. So that is what is needed. You leave the nature intact and house more people. And that is the benefit. Don't compare naya paisa to naya paisa. We are comparing 1 naya paisa to lakhs of rupees. Because of that kind of an environment, the health of all those people has improved. The health of all the neighboring area has improved. That is where the money is. I'm comparing like that. Okay. So your comparison, I often say that we architects, we are not accountants. For accountants, 2 + 2 is 4. For an architect, 2 + 2 is not 4. We make it 44. That is where the charm is.
Can I just add a point to that?
Yes, sir.
See, normally, like in case of a villa development or a low-rise development, in Bangalore, we call it as site development as villa development. We reach only about 0.5 FSI. Whereas if it's a vertical thing, if you are able to reach 3 or 4 FSI, and the cost of land will be substantially lower than a villa development or so. That way, even a vertical development will cost you much less. Though the physical cost of actual cost of construction may be more than a low rise, but when you take the land value and everything into consideration, it is much cheaper than going in for a low rise development. So for the customer also.
Yes, sir. I had forgotten to answer Mr. Vivek Gupta, that how much FSI do we need?
Yeah.
Now, once I had attended a meeting of urban development in Mumbai, And when we attended, there were lots of bureaucrats and everybody, and if somebody was saying, "Oh, let's make it." It was, at 1.33 era. Oh, make it 2.5, make it this, make it that. So before going there for the meeting, I had made my calculations. So I said that, see, Mumbai is some 430 square kilometers or 330 square kilometers. Okay. Out of which you take out Sanjay Gandhi Park, then out of which you take out Godrej Mangroves, take out university, take out railway land, take out this army land, take out roads, and then what we were left with was 150 square kilometers. Okay, then I took the population of Mumbai. That time, it was some, God knows, 12 million or whatever it was. And I said, okay, I'm going to have 35% coverage, and deriving the coverage to the FSI and to house the number of people, I came to an FSI of 8. And mind you, that is taking all the area, no playgrounds, no hospitals, no schools, no offices, nothing. And then the FSI came. So you have to think, see, we are really, we have certain notions in our mind. We can't go high. The fire brigade will say, oh, I don't have a fire brigade. That I get it. We cannot go higher than 4 floors. We have to think we are in a different world. We are not in Europe, we are not in America, where the population and the land is different. We are in India. And we have to think about the way we have to house for our Indian people. And that is 1.3 billion people. And then think about the FSI. Don't just ask me a question about FSI. Have I answered you, Mr. Gupta?
But yeah, I still have my reservation on that. But go ahead, please. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Let's meet one day and I'll convince you. You come to my office. You're most welcome.
There's so much to learn from you, but yes, of course, I will try and do that. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Jaishankar, you'll have to unmute. We can't hear you.
Yeah. No, Vivek, I will answer one question before I exit. There is a question to me by one Mr. Abhishek Rao on Mr. Deepak Parekh's, or remark that the prices may come down by 20%. So I would like to answer that. I must say, in the webinar of Mr. Deepak Parekh with the CREDAI people, he made a passing remark, but unfortunately, the media picks up only that remark, what he spoke for 1 hour. They picked up only a thing, what he spoke for 10 to 15 seconds. He said, if people are in the current situation, business continuity, liquidity is very important. And if people think, they need to be alive and stay liquid, even if it comes to selling at a lower rate of 20% or so, completed projects instead of keeping the stock, he said one may consider. But as far as I will restrict my answer connected with Bangalore and South Indian cities. Here, we sell most of our projects. The average selling price is between 4,500 to 5,500 rupees per a square foot is the average selling price. Of that, as Bowman earlier said, 35 to 40% of the price goes to the government towards indirect taxes, stamp duties, approvals, etc. And then you need to incur your construction cost, land cost, your overheads, and try to have some kind of margin. And it is no secret that developers in southern cities have survived with just single-digit margins. You can see the published accounts of any listed developer in South India. We all survive with less than single-digit margins. Out of that, if you have a stock, completed building which is not sold, the interest itself will take away your margin. So that way there is no possibility. I can, with lot of confidence and authority, I can say there is no possibility of prices coming down by 20%. Also, when Mr. Deepak Parekh talks, he will have the I would say national view in mind and not a specific city in mind. Unless if the prices are much higher, then it could be a different thing. But in Bangalore, there is no possibility. If anybody is thinking that kind of discounts will happen, it is wishful thinking. And to another question which was posed to me, post this lockdown, we expect business to revive substantially. Going by not it is not just my view, it is going by what is happening in China. China was about 2.5 to 3 months ahead of us. That is where the virus originated, Wuhan virus. So there, now that it is back in business, a substantial business has revived, particularly in case of retail. They call what is called as a revenge shopping. So right now there is huge amount of shopping happening in China. Like even luxury goods, like whether it is Hermes or Louis Vuitton, is it is a big news. Similarly, I believe the residential segment has fully revived, and the sales that is happening is the pre-COVID day sales. And China market in residential is 20 times the size of Indian market. So that market has revived in China, and so is the retail. And probably once the airline traffic opens everywhere, whether it is in India or China, even the hospitality sector should improve. So that way we all have to be very optimistic, very positive, and the things is not going to be that bad is what I feel. Of course, time will tell. In the next 3 to 6 months, hopefully things will get back to normalcy. Thank you.
Sir, I have a question.
To whom is the question?
To yourself.
Yeah, please tell me.
Yeah. Sir, the thing is, going by the current scenario in terms of COVID-19 lockdown and all, and we see, it has affected the working class very badly.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are working from home, and a lot of companies are planning to lay off a certain amount of their employees. So what I feel is that going to be like affecting, the commercial real estate space as well, like people who have either committed earlier or going to plan for some kind of expansion in the tech parks and other areas. So will there be a less uptake or probably leasing of space? Will there be any less demand, or it is going to be as buoyant as it is currently?
Yeah. So I will give my response, while time will tell whether whatever I'm saying is right or wrong. You will know. But basically, the Indian office market has been growing between 15 to 20% year on year, and it will continue to grow, because ultimately India's share in the global IT market, software market, is less than 10%. Our exports and our total size is about 180 billion, whereas the size of the IT market in the world is 3 trillion. So we are below 10%, and it is surely going to grow. And another important thing is, whenever United States is in problem, there are issues, recession, etc., most American companies will outsource much more, because it is cheaper to do work in India. It is maybe the cost of doing business for an MNC is less than 20% of what they incur in United States. That way, by outsourcing more and more, they should be able to maintain their profitability. And as regards work from home, yes, there is a certain amount of increased work from home activity one may observe. But all of us, in the last 3 weeks or plus lockdown, we are all dying to go out. If work from home is an option that we have, we all enjoy to work from home if it is 1 day in a week or 2 days in a week. But if you say work from home all 6 days in a week, nobody would want to accept that situation. We are all social animals. We would like to interact with other people, and we would like to engage with other people. That is what life is all about. And I have always maintained life is not just work. Work is a part of our life. Work alone is all work and no play is of no use. That is one. And so secondly, so far for increasing the profitability and to cut costs, particularly post global financial crisis in 2009, the amount of space people were allocating per person had come down from 125 and 100 square feet per person in office buildings to 80 square feet or even below. If it is a ITES, the area occupied was as little as 60 to 65 square feet. Now with the government restrictions, and there is a greater awareness on social distancing, as soon as COVID goes, the concept of social distancing may not fully go. Like the way the concept of work from home also will continue for some time. Similarly, the concept of social distancing will also continue. That way, we expect the area per person for in office buildings should again go back to 100 to 125 square feet or so. That way, the demand should increase. So even otherwise, if you think the demand will come down, if the growth rate from 20% per annum, if it comes down to 15% per annum, I'm not going to argue on that. But overall, the things will be okay. There again, to give the China example, I understand the people are back. More than 95% of the people are back in office. That is a fact. You can check media reports, and also just I think yesterday morning, Cushman Wakefield had a webinar, and their China expert was speaking. He also corroborated the same thing.
Thank you, sir. And one word of appreciation for you, sir. I have seen your developments like Brigade Metropolis and Brigade Gateway and various other developments. I think you have put really Bangalore on the global map because of the kind of developments you have done. So it's a commendable job from Brigade Group.
Thank you, sir. Kind of you to say this in this forum.
There's a question for Sanjay. Anika, go ahead.
Okay, so this is directed to Sanjay Puri. How do you strike the appropriate balance between environmental sustainability, aesthetics, and also by maintaining the desired area and user requirements for financial feasibility of the project? Please give a view from a design perspective.
That's a long, complicated question which cannot be answered just like that. So all I can say at this point is everything that he mentioned is pertinent to doing a design in the correct way. You obviously have to take care of it the environmental way, the functional way, financially viable, and keeping all those factors in mind, come to a design solution which is appropriate and contextual and timeless. There is no particular process or formula for this. Every project is different, every requirement is different, the context is different. So you have to bring those things together and get the best solution for that particular location on that particular site.
Okay, and another question, do you all think that designing spaces will change post-COVID?
Yes. They will change offices which are very cramped right now. We had another discussion on this few days back. Especially the call centers and the software offices which are doing 40-50 square feet per person to 80-90 square feet per person are all going to make them larger. There will be more distance between people on tables, in cabins, in all over the office. Already everybody is talking about adding study spaces or a little home office in apartments, as long as they are of a certain size and one can afford to add those. Wherever the apartments are small, the building societies will provide conferencing facilities as well as a medical care room in case there is, a medical problem. which arises and people need to be distanced. They can stay within the building itself in that isolated area. So a lot of these factors are going to come into planning now for all future projects.
I think we can take one last question for either Hafiz or Sanjay, and then we can call it a day. Anika, any question?
We've got one question. How does one overcome the challenge of poor infrastructure support like public sewage, drainage systems, narrow roads, etc.? These may be incapable of absorbing the discharge from dense vertical developments.
Hafiz may want to answer that.
Design the system properly. That's about all. If you don't design the system properly, it won't work. If you're designed for, if there are 100 flats, you design the discharge for 100 flats. You don't design it foolishly for 5 flats. If you're done it for 5 flats, it won't work. Design it properly. That's about all.
No, and there are ways you can take care of it now. You can recycle, you can rainwater harvest. There are so many things. You don't necessarily have to throw everything into the rainwater. I mean, for example, there was a popular club in Bombay. For the last, it's been existing since 140 years. For 140 years, the swimming pool water was, the discharge water of that pool was being thrown into the drains, into the stormwater drains of Bombay. And I had the opportunity to look at it, and we reworked the whole thing, and now it's all going into rainwater harvesting pits right there and supplementing the groundwater. So we're not throwing on any water now. Any waters, like it's zero. So you can design the project accordingly and minimize the impact on the outside, on the existing services.
When I was saying, design, means,
Yeah, same thing. Just
it has to be, thought of. That's about all.
Thank you, Sanjay, and thank you, Hafiz, for an amazing session. It was fantastic having you on the panel and talking to you. Let's hope we can do a few more of these. It's an eye-opener. It helps people who are listening and brings about awareness of what you feel, the passion you have for your design and the passion the two of you have for the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.